Alright, so I'm doing a little new moon ritual for myself, and I'm no astrologer. This is just per my understanding and a quick, short understanding of what the new moon intention is to be, what it symbolizes for us, and how we can act most in the cyclical rhythm attuned to the moon cycle, and also what it means being in Taurus. And I'm lighting these candles, these intention ambiance candles, as a part of this little ritual. I've already started cleansing and charming my space, and that is already something that is so powerful for me. There's a lesson in that, because if you're like me, you've had a hard time settling down in one place, or accepting stability, or receiving love, or receiving your dreams, or you're receiving your desires, or receiving exactly what you want. And that is because of conscious blockages, likely due to scarcity, lack mindset, abandonment, neglect, shame, and other things like that, which I'm going to talk more about. And this is not only ironic, but more so a synchronicity, because the Taurus new moon is like the energy or the vibe or the theme or the focus of stability and comfort, but also growth and abundance, and like grounding into our comforts and our physical reality more. And it's funny because actually the other day I had just said, like from a spiritual perspective, like, and from when you really like go in, like spiritually and emotionally, like into your psychic experience, I guess, the physical almost seems boring and shallow, but it is awe-striking, and it is something that we get to be intimately present with, and that we get to constantly integrate and learn from. And so I want to share a little bit about, in my perspective, what the theme of this new moon is, and what I am working on that I hope to intend for it to reach the people who need it and who resonate with it. It's setting intentions, and also giving yourself time to observe and to reflect, to process, and to metabolize, and again, begin to transcend and transmute beliefs, narratives, perspectives, thought patterns that are limiting to you, that are based in scarcity, that are rooted in lack, that are products of abuse, that are abandonment or neglect. And I'm also going to talk a lot about shame, and like I've talked before, about the difficulty of being able to receive. I find it very important to focus on not just releasing subconscious blocks, limiting beliefs, narratives, or perspectives that have been taught to or indoctrinated in or conditioned to us, that are false, or that are distorted, or that are based in lack or rooted in scarcity. Not only do we want to release these things, but more importantly, I think it's alchemizing, transforming, transcending. It is processing and metabolizing and extracting the medicine, the blessing, the lesson from the experience of the emotion, whether it is fear, grief, whether it's feelings associated with lack or neglect or abuse or dysfunction or scarcity. We need to transcend them, not just release it, because ultimately we cannot release and move past these things until we have learned from the experience, from the feeling, from the pattern. So that's just a note that I wanted to make. So I have talked a little bit or a lot before, but I want to elaborate more on and talk more about, like Gay Hendricks talks about, we all have a base level or a upper limit capacity for what we will accept or tolerate in our experience, because related to our beliefs. When it comes to success, love, money, fulfillment, whatever it is that you want, you already have an expectation and an association that you identified and defined yourself by, with the level of love, success, money, stability, fulfillment, whatever it may be, that you think you're allowed to receive. And this is vital, because self-sabotage comes in a lot here, because if we have a belief that we are unworthy, that we lack, that we can't do the thing that we want to do, that we can't have the love or the money or the success or the impact that we want, then our brain looks for evidence to validate that lack. And this is by design. Our brains have this magical design to seek out evidence for whatever we believe, whatever we think, whatever we reinforce and affirm through our thoughts, through our beliefs, through our associations, through our expectations of reality. And also our brain can't discern between what we say we do and we don't want. It only knows what we focus on. This is why I think metabolizing, processing, and transcending and transforming and shifting our thoughts, our beliefs, our associations is so important, because that is energy that is meant to be harnessed. But it is a process of unraveling and rupture before repair. It is a significant process in reclaiming our sensuality, our expression, our personality, our creativity, our needs, our thoughts, our desires. And this is also a big theme. Shame is in direct correlation to unmet needs, repressed wounds, repressed needs, repressed desires, repressed expectations, repressed humanness, basically. And so many of our thoughts, like 60,000 a day, are on autopilot. So it's so important for us to observe, slow down, to process, to reflect on, to really notice the reoccurring thoughts that we have about ourselves, about others, about our interactions, about our expectations for how interactions are going to go, and about our worth, and about what we think that we can receive, whether you're an artist, or if you want to travel, or if it's a relationship, or if it's a lifestyle that you want, or a different job, or a certain connection, or a certain experience, or a certain feeling, or a certain wholeness, like to yourself, like whatever it is, we need to step further into that, and that will face the shadow, which we will illuminate, because the shadow of us is the part of ourselves, the feelings, the needs, the desires within ourselves, the expressions within ourselves that we had to avoid and repress, because in our childhood or at some point they were punished, diminished, and shunned. And as this process of renewal, of reclamation, it's kind of akin to shadow work. It's directly correlated to shadow work. If you know anything about it, psychologically, in the psyche, emotionally, mentally, in your desires, in your needs, in how you want to show up in this world, anything that has been repressed or suppressed, any of your emotions, any of your thoughts, any of your desires, any of your expressions that were denied, that were not accepted, that you had to alter in order to gain acceptance, in order to stay in connection, any neglect, any repression, any shunning, any denying of vital aspects of yourself, your emotions, etc., that you need to face in order to be whole, are living in your shadow. And reclamation is vital shadow work. I've been learning so much from this. For years, I have noticed that I have a very, very low capacity for receiving stability, safety, unconditional love, healthy love, community, like acceptance, like embracing of myself, like worthiness, you name it. Like I have noticed a profound blockage and resistance to receiving that which I want. And this is a massive thing about self-sabotage, and it happens in so many ways. It is psychology, it is neuroscience. It happens because we're not comfortable with receiving that which is unfamiliar to us. We will choose, which I've said many times before, the familiar hell over the unfamiliar heaven until we are ready to go on the journey of dismantling and deconstructing, identifying and getting curious about and observing with the intent to heal and shift and transform our thoughts, our frequency, our energy, our beliefs, our narratives. And this is a lifelong journey. It's not just a one-day ceremony. And one big lesson in this process of reclamation and healing and becoming and unbecoming and learning and unlearning has been, I have a vital need to have a meaningful impact, to inspire, to advocate, to create awareness, to practice activism for actual change. And the hurdle of shame and having to learn that me following my authentic path, voice, writing, sharing my insight, sharing how I think, and elaborating on that and expanding on that and pursuing what I care about most, that is actually what the world needs. That is a hurdle, that is a belief that has been wounded and distorted, that has been a big lesson for me. And that resistance to receptivity is something I'm still learning, and it is a capacity that I am beginning to learn to increase and expand upon. And this has been a vital lesson because as I have come to realize, to know, to believe, we all are custom made, curated, and have these cultivated skills, thoughts, beliefs, talents, these callings, these desires, these needs, to these endeavors that we have a calling to pursue in our life. Everything that is authentic and natural to us, that comes to us with so much free, like fiery passion and love, and that is so vital to us, especially the parts that have been repressed and that are suppressed and that are in the shadow. These are so often the parts of us that are the characteristics that have come to fruition from us being a divinely designed being here to not only live out our own wholeness and healing and becoming in creativity, but to serve the collective, the society, the world, humanitarianism, the environment, and so many other causes through. And this is wild. That which comes naturally to us from our innate, blissful, loving kindness state of like the spiritual being that we are spirits having a human experience. All those harmonious things, I think we all have. We all have these thoughts, these callings, these talents, these gifts, these things we love to do and that we're naturally drawn to that serve the collective in our own life in beautiful, harmonious ways. But it's kind of like the notion that destruction is also creation. The opposite of our loving, harmonious, creative, natural, innate, emotional, artistic, sensual expressions would be corruption, would be destruction, would be malevolence, would be overexertion of power with malicious intent to submit, to cause the collective to conform, to bend to their will. So this is where the shadow and the light of our desires, of our needs, of our expressions, of our emotions, of our mentality, of our thoughts is so important to take time in the stillness and the space to journal and sit with and reflect on and process and to observe. Like especially all day, it's a practice of observing those identities, those things that you've defined yourself by, those associations, those narratives that are just constantly on repeat. And this is all with the intention of the highest good for the collective, for society, for the planet, for humanity as a whole, and with intentions infused of harmony and health and regeneration for ourself and for the natural rhythm of all things. Because again, like shame and corruption and anger and rage, all of this is evidence and symptoms to the extreme disconnection that has happened from us being severed from nature, from our inner nature, from our knowing, from our intuition, from our emotions, from our expression, from our movement. We are here in a physical being, in a physical body, to experience the sight, the smell, the touch, the movement, the sensuality, all the pain, the pleasure, the grief, the gratitude that is offered to us. We are meant to, in wholeness, feel it, not restrict it, and we have restricted and repressed so much, and that is why. And it's sacred rebellion, or even better than rebellion, it is a sacred pause, it is a sacred remembering, it is a sacred realignment and rediscovery and expansion and acceptance and embracing of our natural state of bliss, of love, of wholeness, of creativity, of expression. And a very, very vital, important, and integral aspect to all this is being brave enough to care, to remain sensitive, to be concerned, to feel the fear and the worry and the pain, the Weltschmerz, the world agony, to be willing to face all that disruption and rupture that you feel within your own life, all that grief, that mourning, that pain, and that sadness within your own life, and also facing the world's injustice and corruption and the dysfunction and the disalignment in humanity. This is brave, and it's powerful. This is reclaiming, preserving, nurturing, nourishing, and tending our humanity. Sometimes it takes a while for my stories to upload, and then some of them it won't upload because of my phone storage, which is something that I am fixing and shifting. But a couple things that I wanted to say is the opposite and or the shadow of all those intuitive callings, instincts, gifts, and talents that you are naturally endowed with, that are cultivated and custom made for your impact, your meaningful impact to serve the greater good, the collective, your fulfillment, your liberation, your awakening. The shadow of those things are malevolent, malice, abuse of power, destruction, corruption. The divine masculine, the energy of the divine masculine, of the power, of the action taker, of the provider, is clearly wounded. Our society is directly reflecting and is highly symptomatic of this severe wounding. It happens through division, it happens through dehumanization, it happens through demoralization, it happens through abuse of power, it happens by deprioritizing nature and the environment and our humanity and love and grace and equality and diversity. It happens through severing our connection to our intuition, our emotions, nature, our humanity, and so many other vital aspects and expressions that we are fortunate to get to explore, discover, and exhibit as humans. I do have a suggestion, like another ceremonious ritual practice that you can do after this topic, but just notice how in the patriarchy, the man is supposed to lead, he's supposed to be the controller and the provider, but also the man is not allowed to be sensitive or sensual or have emotions or want to be a creative artist or writer or, you know, a dancer or be flamboyant, and these things are natural aspects of us. So again, these repressed, these wounded, these suppressed, these denied, these diminished, these locked away and shunned parts of ourselves, when they are suppressed, that dysfunction, that disalignment, the disembalancing, the imbalance that happens from that lack of suppression, it comes out and it's destructive. So finally, for this new moon, for the time of sowing seeds, as well as observing and giving space to your thoughts and your emotions, and allowing yourself to kind of purge by transcending and breaking open and shedding that which is no longer serving you, by transcending that into something that is more empowering, you are making space for new beginnings in your life. And a practice you can do is visualize, write, journal about, breathe into, do some type of practice that gives you the visceral feeling, embodied experience of something that you intend to do. Whether it's playing guitar on stage or publishing a book or starting a new craft or a new skill or learning a new language or a new topic of study. Or if it is a perspective of yourself that you need to shift, allow yourself to notice, I think everyone thinks I'm annoying, and shift that into, I am highly admired and valued, and get into the feeling of some of these very common conditioned, limiting beliefs, self-diminishing beliefs that suppress and repress our authentic expression, our authentic desires, our authentic intuition and instincts and gifts and talents, are those of being unworthy or needing to earn love or being too much and needing to change in order to remain in connection with someone else. A lot of the beliefs cause us to self-neglect and self-abandon and repress our creativity, our laughter, our dance, our movement, our funniness, our silliness, our deep psychological, intuitive, introspection mind, you know. And another that I've noticed is inadequacy, thinking that you're too inadequate to learn a skill or a subject or to paint or play guitar or sing or dance or step into the limelight of that which you love and are passionate about and want to share, but don't feel comfortable sharing because you don't feel confident within yourself. And it would be a massive disservice for me to not recognize that the societal, traditional, patriarchal paradigms and beliefs and narratives that have the foundations of scarcity and lack and repression and oppression are intertwined in our society and are taught to us. We are taught to dilute and compare and subject ourselves to pain and suffering. We are taught to devalue ourselves, but also objectify ourselves. We are taught to compare ourselves to external people, other people. We are taught to romanticize and idealize other people and put them on a pedestal, which inherently devalues us. We are taught to be separated from our creativity, femininity. We are taught to be skeptical or find it too much of a privilege or a luxury or righteous to read, to take up space, to do yoga, to create, to give ourselves time, to question our psychology and our beliefs, to be deep thinkers. We are discouraged from deep thinking. And the reason we have been discouraged from conscious opinions and articulating and assessing and analyzing and challenging and questioning and getting curious about beliefs and paradigms and patterns and societal norms and indoctrinated ignorance and prejudice and so many aspects of ourself and the world and society and humanity. The reason we've been discouraged from discovering, from deepening, to softening, to being tender, to being deep, to being psychological. The reason we are discouraged from our consciousness and our intuition and the deep well of wealth that is our abundant emotions and signals and intuition, the reason we are discouraged from these things is because the magic really is within us. The magic really is within us. Heaven is within us. Peace, sanctity, contentment, sovereignty, autonomy, impact, beauty, meaning, heaven, bliss is within us.
but we're distracted from it.